I'm just going to touch a little bit on the building resilient ecosystems for a thriving impact economy. I work for an organisation that's effectively a network of organisations across the global south that propel entrepreneurship. So we work with ecosystem actors across the board, from governments to entrepreneurs, to ensure that we are delivering solutions that meet the needs of our entrepreneurs to propel growth. We already say statistics, 85% of Ghana's economy is reliant on SMEs. We call them SGBs because I work with a Washington-based organisation. In America, they like to distinguish with that missing middle. But the message today is around collaboration and partnership. We cannot insist enough on the importance of collaboration. There is so much work to do, not just in Ghana, but across the continent and across the global south, to drive entrepreneurship, to propel growth, and to provide job creative opportunities for our young people. I can go on for a long time, but I know that my colleagues will give me time. I only have 1 minute to introduce. But really, the conversation today, this morning, is around what are the key actions that are taking place in the Ghana ecosystem now. What are the best practice? What's happening in that space? But we want to run an interactive session. You're not here to just sit and listen. So prepare yourself, start writing your questions right now, because I'm coming to you in the next few minutes after we've had initial conversations with the panel, because it's about all of us. It's about how we all interact, how we all collaborate, and how we all partner to drive growth. So the session is, as I said, key actions, what's happening in the space is critically important. So now I'll sit down. And here's where my skills of moving from my phone to my pen and paper is going to be really interesting. So bear with me. Technology can't do everything. Okay, so really what I want now to start is a little introduction from all our panelists to say a little bit about yourself, your organization, who you work with. Very, very important. So notepads out, write names. And then tell us a little bit about the innovations and the programs that you're running and how they are there to drive growth, SME growth, and more importantly, the impacts that these projects are making. So we all have like 3 minutes each. I'm sure someone's timing us to come with our answers. So I'm going to start at the far end with Hamdia, well known to Impact Investing Ghana, a celebrity in the impact investing space. Please take it away, Hamdia.
Thank you, Em, and very good morning to you all. My name is Hamdia. I work for Savannah Impact Advisory. We are an investment management company, and our flagship fund is called the Chigaba Fund. Chigaba means progress in Hausa, so we are progressing the SMEs, supporting SMEs in Ghana. And the idea of the fund is to support multi-assets, right? So Amma has a dream of seeing a Ghana that interest rates are low. I have a dream of seeing a Ghana where we have a value chain of financing, where when you wake up in the morning, you have an idea, you have someone who is able to back you, and as your idea is thriving, there is a next person who is there to give you more money, and then as you want to scale across, there is somebody else with a different category of money to help you. We need that level of, different kinds of instruments to support companies from birth to maturity. So this fund is going to invest in different assets and trying to make sure that we support SMEs at the different stages of their growth. And that's what we are seeking to do. It's an SDG aligned, so we are actually trying to ensure that we significantly put our monies that support both social and environment, and also make sure that we are able to grow companies that create jobs that are flexible enough to be able to look at, different aspects of the economy as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to you, Nana.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Nanaya Ifrio Forikori. I see that I have another Ifrio on the panel, so I'll stick to Nanaya for this particular session. I'm the head of partnerships, sustainability, and CSR at Fidelity Bank.
Is it working? Sorry, is your mic working well?
It's not? Is it
That's
better?
That's better.
Fantastic. So
Wonderful.
do you want me to restart, or you're good?
Go and restart for us, why not?
Okay. I'm the head of partnerships, sustainability, and CSR at Fidelity Bank. So Fidelity Bank is the largest privately owned local bank in Ghana, and my department leads on the responsible banking activities for the organization. What it means is that I'm responsible for ensuring that everything we do in the bank has a positive impact on society and the environment, and we fully integrate sustainability principles into all the operations and activities in the bank. So that's a very wide scope, but for the purpose of this conversation today, the sustainable finance arm of what I do is what is relevant. So in that space, I'm responsible for ensuring that we provide innovative finance in the form of blended finance activities and instruments to different organizations, particularly SMEs. And we're quite sector agnostic, but we're impact first, where I sit. We're not financial returns first. So that's what we do. There are a number of projects that we're running. Fidelity Young Entrepreneurs Initiative, which gives very, very concessionary interest rates to SMEs, 5% and 10%, but I can talk about that a little bit more. And my vision is to grow my portfolio. So in as much as I'm here to tell you about what we're doing, I'm also looking for partners, because I'm always on the lookout for partners, right? And I like the ecosystem conversation, because we can't do it all. Absolutely. It's a journey that we are on. We don't know everything, like Amma said, we're not perfect, but we're very willing to find those who know the different parts of the ecosystem so that we can all work together and grow the SME space. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's truly important, that collaboration. Please, our next speaker.
All right. Good morning. My name is Efrie Owari, and I'm CEO of Axis Pension Trust. At Axis, we also have a vision of seeing at least 50% of the Ghanaian working population being financially included, particularly for pensions. Can you hear me? Okay, great. And so our mission as an organization is to inspire the Ghanaian worker to achieve financial peace of mind. And this we have been doing zealously. So as a pensions company, our liabilities are pretty much long-term, well in excess of 10 years. And so we are pretty much impact-seeking, looking to do the kind of investment that can create long-term capital that can preserve long-term value for our contributors. And so in the past 5 years, we have been investing in private equity, particularly growth-oriented private equity funds, to ensure that we are also able to help in efficiently allocate capital to where it is needed the most. In our early years, we were learning, really. I mean, as a company that has just been licensed, we were a bit cautious, investing pretty much in fixed income securities. Now I will say that Axis and the entire pensions industry has come of age. Our risk governance capabilities have improved. At Axis, for instance, we have a very capable internal team that does our investment. We have the full complement of skills and competencies we also require on the board of trustees. And so, yeah, we are ready for the game, and we look forward to collaborating more to ensure that more capital can be directed to where it is needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. I'm sorry if we're having a little bit of interference with the microphones, the apologies. Our next speaker, David, very familiar with, I'm sure everyone in the room is very familiar with David and the great work they've been doing in the sector. Please take it away.
Thank you, Em, and good morning to you all. I'm here as a consultant for the Ghana Investment Support Program. That is a program funded by the British International Investments. The main objective of the program is to see an increase in investment flows from the capital markets, from financial institutions to SMEs. That said, let me take myself from now to about 2035 and see what the vision looks like if we have all been successful, including what we are doing at the Ghana Investment Support Program. So let's say we're in 2025 now, and we've got...
We're coming to that art a little bit. Yes, save yourself. So we have that conversation to happen in the next round. So just introduce yourself, what you're doing, and your key actions, what it is that you're doing specifically that's going to...
Okay, so we're helping build the ecosystem. First of all, we provide a lot of support to ecosystem partners. IGH, a very key delivery partner of ours. We work with Stamford Seed and a lot of other partners. We try to build capacity of fund managers now locally, so that they will be able to take on more capital and be able to invest, especially through the lenses of climate finance, gender, and diversity. We work with transaction advisors, trying to get a lot more transaction advisors to act as a bridge between the capital providers and the SMEs. And of course, we provide technical assistance to companies to help make them investment ready so that they can access funding. But the funding currently is from funds that have BI investments, so that's GIP, Adenia, and the others. So we provide technical assistance to make these companies investor ready. But above all, our main mission is to get more funding to SMEs, so anything that we have to do in the ecosystem to build capacity of ecosystem players to increase funding to SMEs is something that we'll bite on. Thank you.
Fantastic, that's great. We're coming back to you on the vision, don't worry. Amma, I'm sure everyone knows you, right?
Yes.
We're causing interference between our mics. Go ahead, please.
So everybody does know me because I've spoken, but it will be good to say a little bit about what we do. Impact Investing Ghana is a field-building organization. We're set up by the ecosystem, so by a number of organizations from government, private sector mostly, both suppliers of capital and those who demand capital. And many of our members are in the room, and so I'd like to give them a round of applause for all the volunteering that they do. And they care about developing the ecosystem. So we do research to identify gaps, and then we force people to come together to fill the gaps. And that's essentially what we do. So this conference is an example of one of our convenings, but we have, for example, work with pensions, where we're trying to unlock pension funding. And Axis is one of the most consistent participants in that work, both in terms of their funding and in terms of their thought partnership. And we have other collaborators that I mentioned in our welcome speech. And this all should lead to more capital. So then we have specific initiatives that either get the money to flow better, like Deal Source Africa, or that actually unlock pools of money that have not been previously available to the real economy.
I'm going to come back to you with the next round as well, so stay poised. We're going to go back to your vision, the vision of what our ecosystem will look like in 10 years' time. I know what I would like it to look like, and I think Amra's always expressed a little bit about how she would like it to look, with low interest rates, with a plethora of programs and support for SMEs and SGBs in the space. But let's go, 10 years' time, say we've achieved that funding gap, that financing gap. Was it $5 billion? It's a lot of money to gain in the next 10 years, but how? What's your vision? How can we achieve that? What do we need to do to get to that point?
So where is the $5 billion going to come from? I think that some of it is going to come from the pools of long-term financing that we have, which is pensions. Mm-hmm. But the thing with pensions is that it's your money and my money. Nobody wants to lose that money. So for us to get there, we need to figure a way to invest that money and actually make more return than what the government of Ghana is providing or any other investment source. And that's what should be, except there are many headwinds like the economic situation, etc. But we would have figured out, which means that pensions make real sector investments with a lot of integrity. and that we have a very high level of scrutiny on these kinds of investments. But at the same time, there's a bit of innovation, which means that you may need to mix up the pension money with other money that can take more risk, that maybe can form a sort of cushion, so that now you can unlock this money because you're blending it in interesting ways. So I think what we would see is a lot of blending with catalytic capital coming in, blending with pension funding, so that pension assets can be secured, but businesses can have access.
And that's fantastic. So it's great that we have this representation across the ecosystem in terms of how we can impact in this space. So David, now it's time for your vision for 10 years' time. How do what do we need to do to get to this vision of this closing this financing gap?
I don't know whether this will be wishful thinking.
No, it's not wishful thinking. We have to believe that we can do.
Let's just say we are there in 2035 and we're looking back. And we see our pensions industry maybe has mobilized some 11.4 billion.
Right? Wonderful. So there's a target, pension industry. What was the target?
11.4 billion.
Okay.
Let's say we are growing at 10% from now. Dollars.
Yes, true.
We are growing at 10% from this year onwards.
Fantastic.
Let's say we do get the returns. Let's say out of that, there's a 10% allocation to alternate investments.
Okay.
Wishful thinking.
No.
That's 1.14 billion. The insurance industry.
Yes.
And we haven't left them out, so all our programs have brought them in.
Okay,
We've
wonderful.
also mobilized about 500 million, out of which they put about 25 million to alternate investments. Then we can talk about other institutional and high net worth investors who've brought another 5 million and put 5% in alternates. So that's another 25 million. And we have built and developed strong 20 indigenous fund managers that are responsible for investing this 1.2 billion. And out of that, maybe 456 million, let's say 40% of that is investing across the region in our pensions, 2035. And then we have a company, it's a global champion, it's called Sizzle Limited. Right, they are a cashew processor based in the Bono region, right? And they are just about to do an IPO. Now, what's the story of Sizzle Limited? It was started by 2 graduates from the Catholic University in Fiapre. They had a beautiful idea in 2023. They took the idea to the Ghana Enterprise Authorities Business Advisory Council in Sunyane, and they do exist, by the way. The advisors there help them to hone their business skills. From there, they went to Kumasi Hive the following year. You know Kumasi Hive, where they were helped to prepare a business plan, others. So these founders would then they received an initial grant from USAID to start buying from a 4,000 cooperative farmer unit. So they became aggregators. They received technical assistance from a GIZ funded program, which was run by INOHAB, to prepare the business plan and complete feasibility studies for the establishment of their plant. And this happened in 2025. After that, the company appointed, well, I'm biased anyway, ThinkUp as a transaction advisor. And through DealSource, they were matched to MREPA, who provided equity capital. So this company, MREPA, had actually that year raised 300 million, and that transaction was supported by Enterprise Trustees, the Teachers Fund, the Ghana Medical Association Pension Scheme, Access, and Pensions Alliance Trust. MREPA exited in 2032 to Oasis. And Oasis had also raised money. The fund managers who recommended Oasis to the trustees included Stanlib, Bora, IC, and DataBank. Now, Sizzle received technical assistance to build an ESMS and receive green and organic certifications. This assistance came from the Ghana Investment Support Program. In 2028, And because of that, they were able to assess a loan of 140 million for working capital and capex. And they assessed the loan at 10% on the CD.
Not quite. Not bad, not bad.
Now, this company is making 1.8 billion in profits with PAT margins of around 52%. And the company is about to get listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange. They have already received underwriting support from many pension funds, including some collective investment schemes with allocations to equity. The company plans to also list on the London Stock Exchange by 2037. Wishful thinking or false hope?
I love it. And no, it's not wishful thinking.
But for me, if all the collaborators in the room
absolutely
come together, holding a baton and passing it on, playing our roles as we want to be, I think this will happen.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
We can have a round of applause for that, because that's the reason why we're all here today. And I love the way that you describe the journey, because number one, you name the target. So I hope everyone has listed the targets, because now, as we move through time, this is what we're measuring. This is how we know we're moving the needle. This is how we know we're supporting the businesses out there to access finance and to build and grow. Thank you so much. It's a great story. And thank you all the guys that you mentioned. I'm sure that you'll be meeting later to sign the collaboration and partnership agreement to take us to this 2034. I'll be there. We're taking Snap. We'll see you. Now, our next speaker, please. I hope you've got a wonderful story like this. I'm sure you will, to take us to 2034.
I wish I did.
And it's not wishful thinking.
Actually, I think Ahmed's dream is not wishful thinking.
No, it's not.
Our economy is confronted with several challenges, really. And so it is imperative on all of us to ensure that this happens. First of all, if you look at the story Alex told about the unemployment situation in the country, it is quite harrowing. I mean, only 1 out of 10 graduates are finding jobs. And so in 10 years, if we don't do something, chances are that we'll have a very educated, youthful population who have spare time to do criminal things. And so certainly that is a risk for the country. I mean, secondly, from where I sit, I like to scan the environment to look at what can go wrong in the horizon. And I feel that our economy faces some imminent threats as well. We depend on the extractive industry, which is exposed to what I'll call termination risk. Oil and gas, gold, or, now we are talking about lithium. And all these minerals are not ones you can replenish, meaning that at some stage, they will dry up. Unfortunately, in the past few years, we've also watched on for galamsey or illegal mining to destroy our cocoa industry. And this year, I think we all heard that about 40% of our cocoa output has gone down by 40%. So really, we need to start building new anchors for economic development. And that's the reason this is not wishful thinking. Now, for us to be able to solve this, we need to ensure that we deepen access to funding. We need to ensure there's enterprise development program to build capacity. And we also need to ensure that economic policy is properly aligned to the direction of SMEs. And I want to just give a little context to that. In terms of access to funding, if you look at where we are today as an economy, only 12% of loanable funds to GDP, only 12% of GDP in loanable funds is accessible or is available to the private sector. Just suppose that against, government's public debt, it's about 104%. In fact, if you look at this more critically, you think Ghana is like a communist country, really. Because it just doesn't make sense for the private sector, which is the engine of growth, to be stifled of capital. And so something definitely ought to happen in this direction. And I expect that in the next 50 years, in the next 10 years, we will try to increase credit to the private sector to between 30 to 50%. And we in the pensions industry, I would say, are well poised. Our investment guidelines allows us to do up to 65% in the private sector. So 35% of that is available in corporate debt. And we also have 25% in alternative assets, which includes private equity. So really, our industry cannot be blamed if capital doesn't go. It takes the ecosystem to develop to ensure that efforts are properly directed. The second one is enterprise development. I feel that, everyone is talking about pension funds making, capital available, but we are looking for economic returns. And I feel before any investment should go into the SME space, we need to ensure that the actors there are bankable. Today, like you rightly suggested, they are 85%. Our economy generates about 85% of its employment from that sector. And yet, over 80% of what we eat and consume is imported. So the question is, what value are these SMEs really creating for the economy? So we need to ensure that there is proper enterprise development program to build the capacity of these industries, to also ensure that we improve their governance practices, and last of all, to ensure that there is a bit of effort to foster collaborations, partnerships, and even mergers in the SME space to ensure there is scale, achieved. And the last one is economic policy. I believe our SME sector is not attractive because they are not properly pointed to where the economy is going. If you look at other countries like Germany, where SME is a dominant, segment of the economy, the SME activities are anchored around key economic actors. It could be the manufacturing sector, where the SMEs are plugged in as value chain actors, either as suppliers. But in our economy, you really can't say what SMEs are contributing. And so we need a proper economic policy to identify what exactly Ghana wants to contribute to the world, and to ensure that SME efforts are properly pointed in that direction, in aligning efforts and investment towards SMEs. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that. You highlighted so many important areas in terms of ensuring that the ecosystem are properly trained, capacity built, so that they can offer the services we need to transition a lot of the SMEs we have in this space so that they have the ability to grow. I'm going to just kind of expand the question a little bit with our next two speakers in terms of share the vision of what we need to achieve in 10 years' time. But more importantly, how can our businesses be positioned or better prepared to access these opportunities?
Okay, all right.
Or
thank
Nana,
you.
sorry, excuse me.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. So in the space that I sit, as I explained, I provide concessionary funding to SMEs, right? And I'm eager to lend more just because I have very low interest rates available. But what I tend to find is the quality of pipelines of SMEs coming into my space is a bit challenging, right? Let's have some honest conversations here today. I
Please, let's have
struggle
honest conversations
with some of the applications that come through. So the two projects that I just want to highlight. We have a project with the Netherlands Embassy, Orange Corners Innovation Fund, and they go through a 6-month boot camp process and then apply for the funding, right? And after they get the funding, there's also technical assistance in terms of mentoring and then post-investment monitoring. But there's another project, which is the Fidelity Young Entrepreneurs Fund, and that's solely our money that we've ring-fenced at 10% interest rate, right? Because we want to grow this space. But what I tend to find is that I struggle to find the kind of businesses that should be supported. So some of the things that I'm looking forward to is having the enterprise support organizations really step in and build up these, be it startups or early growth, whatever stage they're at, to make them investor ready. It's a term that we bandy around a lot. But you tend to find that when the applications come in, there are challenges with those applications. However, internally, I also think that we need to look at maybe our risk appetite, right? So we deal with different types of organizations. We need to look at the risk appetite for SMEs because they may not be at a stage where they should be assessed on a commercial basis. When I have an applicant come in and say my bank is asking for bank statements, we need to look at that. So now in our space, we're willing to accept MOMO statements, yes. Because there are certain things that we've realized that these SMEs just don't have at that particular stage. So they should be supported to get to a growth stage, right? So there are a number of things around financial literacy, business literacy that we need to impart to the SMEs. And also, there should be a conversation around the mutual respect from the lender and the SME who is accepting the terms and conditions. I have cases where I lend, and when I'm interested in post-investment monitoring, the SMEs don't understand why I'm following my money. I want to know what the money is being used for, one, and also to see if there are other gaps that you need support on. So that's why the ecosystem conversation is always exciting to me, because we're only good at what we're good at. And I will not pretend to be able to support SMEs and do all the business literacy, et cetera. I need a partner to do that. I will come in with the cost-necessary funding. I will go and look for the low-cost funds and go to DFIs, go to FMO, go to the Netherlands Embassy, RVU, et cetera, and say that I need cheap sources of funding, which I can blend with my commercial so that I'm able to give SMEs 5% interest rate or 10% interest rate. But on the other side, I need to have a pipeline of good quality SMEs that I can fund. I'm currently having a conversation with a DFI. We have a fairly good interest rate. They need to see the pipeline because they are not going to give me the funds for it to just sit in my bank. And I don't want the funds to just sit in my bank because there's a purpose for those funds. That's it. That's the key thing. And another thing that I think will be good for SMEs to look at is integrating your sustainability metrics into your organization from the beginning. I'm looking at impact first. When I come and talk to you about your financials, I also need to understand what are your sustainability metrics? How are you measuring them? I'm not expecting a mature impact measurement and management system. No, but you need to start looking at that space. Because honestly, if we're talking about long-term catalytic funding, we're talking about sustainable development goals, we're talking about financing which will flow into those kinds of projects, you need to have a system in place. So I think those are some of the things which will be important going forward if we want to unlock more capital. And I know David didn't mention Fidelity Bank in there, but I'm going to insert myself into that ecosystem because that's what my unit is all about when it comes to sustainable finance, looking for guarantees so I can lend more, looking for concessionary funding, technical assistance, et cetera, et cetera. So.
Thank you for that. And Hamdia, please, your vision and then how businesses should be prepared to take these opportunities.
Thank you. So I just want to add a little bit to what David said, that we list the company and make sure that everybody has it in their financial, most of the pension funds actually have acquired some of those companies. My view or my vision is that we should have a Ghana in the next 10 years where by the time you finish school, you have a job offer. And in fact, you have multiple job offers and you decide which one you want to pick. And if you choose the entrepreneurship line, you have the support right from school to build and then come out and have more support the way David described it and throughout. So I had started by saying that I believe that we need to have look at financing entrepreneurship with a value chain mindset, right? So each business is unique, and each business has a way of starting. And there are different needs and different kinds of money that we have available to support companies. So if you don't start a business today and walk to the bank that you are looking for money. So Nanaya has money, but by the time you get to Nanaya, you should have a certain kind of foundation. And the thinking is that who is going to give you money for that foundation? And so we need different kinds of financing vehicles or financial instruments that support these businesses throughout. And Nanaya, as you mentioned, if you have a company that has gone through incubation, acceleration, where we have some acceleration capital for them to actually practice what they are being taught in acceleration, right? They'll be able to keep a very good record. They'll be able to understand these little metrics that you are looking for. And I like it when you said that we don't really need to have a fully fledged, impact measurement system. We know it's difficult for entrepreneurs, especially, small companies to actually be able to have this fully fledged. But it's just the thought of the fact that this is what I'm looking at, this is where I want to go, so that when somebody is backing you, they understand where you are going together. And so when we have such programs, and it comes with money, and they build from there, when they are ready, they have cash flows coming, and they are going through Nanaya, it's easier for her to be able to, support. And so sometimes I feel that we need different kinds of, these financing mechanisms. I have been a champion of angel investing because I think it's critical. I have been a champion of making sure that we have VC funds. The work VC funds does is not the same work that growth, equity does. That is not what private equity does. So we need to have all these different asset classes in terms of, the features and the way they invest, and pass them along. And David said it. So you have Maripa, investing, giving it to Oasis to pick, and then list it on the Ghana Stock Exchange. I think that in the next 10 years, we should be able to have 10 of the MTNs listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange, and it's Ghanaian. And we can do it. We just have to have people who know how to build companies and get that done, and create jobs, because it's very critical that we do so. And most of the companies should also go into import substitution activities that allows us to reduce our over-reliance on the forex, right? So food systems. I always say that if you're a country and you can't feed yourselves, then you have no reason to exist. We spend all our money importing food. We can produce food here. And we have companies to do that. We should support companies to do that. And we need to make sure policy works. So the MC started by talking about pineapple, and the fact that pineapple lands are being taken over by real estate. We need to zone the lands, right? And say this is agricultural land, and agricultural land is an agricultural land, so that we know that we are producing to feed companies. Our experience in investing in manufacturing has shown us that a lot of the manufacturing concern is not working because of lack of raw material. If you invest right now in Ghana, if you invest in the manufacturing sector, you need to commit a lot of money on working capital side to actually store the raw material. Otherwise, the company will run for like 3-4 months and shut down for the rest of the year because there's no raw material to process. So it's a whole, thinking that we need to look at. And we have to look at both of it in sectorial forms, in supply of capital, in demand of capital, in other support services, to ensure that we get it together. And everybody has a role to play. So let's sit down and let's talk about it. And let's look at the roles each and everyone has to play. Look, everybody has a role to play. We know that we keep saying pension funds putting money in the productive sectors of the economy, which is critical. The productive sectors of the economy should be ready to receive these monies. And those of us who wants to give these productive sectors money should be ready to roll our sleeves and work with them. Because it's not easy. You know, entrepreneurship itself is also not easy, and we need to make sure that we build the right talent for these companies. All of us have a role to play, because one of the key areas also is talent, right? And so we need to also make sure that we build the talent for them. And so even collaborating with the universities is also very important, because don't give us raw product. Give us product that we can use. So when somebody comes to me and says, I studied this in school, I don't expect the person to be, know everything, but the person should have basic skills to be able to perform the function that the person is given to do. And so we all have a role to play. I'm happy to collaborate. I mean, anybody who has seen the way I work, I love to collaborate, because I always have this mantra that a lone soldier does not win a war. And so you need to collaborate and work together to make it happen. We are seeing what is happening in Ghana because we are not producing. So we need to produce. We need to feed ourselves and then begin to look at how we export. Policy environment is critical. Well, I think if the business community is well-funded and we are doing what we need to do, then we can bring the policymakers to order. Because at this point, it looks as if we are at the mercy of the policymakers. And if you are at the mercy of the policymakers, you don't get the right policies done. But if you are able to build and then you demand certain kinds of policies, then you get it done. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Basically, what we're hearing is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. We have a huge ecosystem with a myriad of stakeholders that need to work together to address the challenges that we have, from diversifying the types of funding that comes in to the type of support, BDS, technical assistance. All those types of things are needed to ensure the growth and development of businesses. Now it's up. Now I'm coming to you, the audience. I hope you've been writing your questions and you've been writing down those statements that you now want to challenge, because if I have to come out there to the floor to get you to respond, because this is about you, the ecosystem. We have actors here that are providing the support and the innovations to be able to drive growth. So I'm going to open up the floor for these conversations to turn into something beautiful. So we want to hear from you. We want to hear your ideas for how we can innovate and collaborate to increase the support we need for the SGBs or small and growing business sector. I'm not seeing many hands rising. Please, questions. Wow, I'm going to literally come to the floor and I'm going to make you answer questions, because that's how we do. Okay, we have the gentleman over here that has questions. A question. Ladies. Wonderful, wonderful. But remember, I'm coming to all of you. We want interaction. So I will start with this gentleman here, please. First, have you got a mic? Okay, this lady. Go ahead.
Yes, so good morning, everybody. I just want to appreciate the panelists. I'm Kola Jalima from Tamale, Northern Region. Yes, I'm loving the discussion so far in terms of how you are situating it and putting us in the next 10 years, what you expect Ghana to be. I just want to ask a question in relation to, in all this discussion, where do we situate the rural woman?
Okay, that's a big, broad question. Well, that's good. Yes. I don't know who wants to take that from the panel. Where do we situate the woman? I know that women have been...
Rural woman.
Yeah. The rural. The rural. Who wants to take that question?
Thank you for your question. I think that financial inclusion is one of the key areas to look at in terms of trying to situate support to women. rural in particular, when you are also looking at capacity building, also looking at supply chain. I don't know within the context of what your question is, but I'm just trying to respond to it based on the work I have done on the field. I realize that there is a lot of, when you look at supply chain, for example, rural women play a very key role, right, in agriculture. In Ghana, you cannot talk about agriculture without actually talking about our women. And we also know that, for example, in the North, we know that some commodities are even called women crops, right? So how do we support women who are in these areas to be able to produce more? I look at it within financial inclusion, making sure that there's accessibility and there's also hands-on support to rural women. And so we did some investment in soybean in the North. And we work with a lot of women in the North to support soya production for one of our plants in Kumasi. And what did we do? We made sure that there was support to them on the field. We made sure that they had access to good quality seeds, right? So that they don't reuse seeds. That can improve the productivity of the farms, and that increases their income. And so within the context of what we do, if you are looking at financing, and that's what I'm talking about, that is where I can situate, women. We also know that there was also another program that we did to support sorghum farmers around preparing the sorghum, putting it in a warehouse, and actually transporting it to the off-taker. And most of the warehouses were telling us that the product that was coming from women were actually very well cleaned. They had destoned it well so that they don't waste stones and say that they are weighing produce. So I think within the context of actually financial inclusion, making sure that women have access to the finance, to the seed, to the support, and also placing them very well within the value chain as producers of raw material is one of the lenses that I'm looking at it. So I don't know whether I've responded to your question.
Just to add, in terms of gender lens investing, some of the things that are very relevant to us and some of the feedback that we've got, when we actually give loans, NPLs for women is far less. Yes, it's far less than for the men. So apart from the fact that I would get funding towards these projects, I'm confident when I'm lending to women, right? But I recognize that maybe we need to change our approach a little bit, because I'm sitting here in Accra, I'm speaking English, and I'm talking about my projects. I need to get into the community to actually roll these kinds of projects out. So some of the things that we should be doing. We have a project along those lines. It's with a DFI, and it's in the agric space, just like you spoke about. And the interest rates are single digits. And it being gender and women, impact first, we actually assess the potential impact of your smallholder farm before we look at your financials. And those metrics score higher in determining whether or not we're going to fund you. And then once you're funded, there are the BDSs who are supposed to help you introduce things like climate smart agriculture, etc. in there. So there's the gender lens investing that we all should look at critically, and I'm sure a lot more work will go into that space.